All right, and welcome back to another episode of I Hate Fantasy Football. We are going to go ahead and take a look back at the year in review. We're going to take a look back at some of the top finishers. We're going to look back at some of the best and worst moves, MVP, LVP. You'll notice, though, that I am by myself right now. There is a trophy sitting here next to me. I am missing my co-host because, well, I do believe today he deserves an introduction. So let's go ahead and introduce my co-host. Woo! And now, our new LSHS alumni fantasy football champion, Crazy MFJR!
Cheers, buddy. How you doing?
Welcome to the show, man.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
You having a good time?
I'm doing just fine.
All right. You enjoying that belt there?
Yeah.
Holding up your pants?
I enjoyed it quite a bit.
All right. All right.
Yeah, I like it.
Celebrating?
Yeah. Fits nicely.
Okay.
Cause for celebration. Enjoying it.
So, all right, where's the first place you're going to wear the belt?
Currently on our show. Then I think I might drop the kids off at school tomorrow and wear it as well.
I think they'd love that.
We'll see how it goes.
All right, let's go ahead and take a look back at our season. This will be our year in review episode.
Great.
Let's go ahead and do our introductions again. This is Crazy MFJR. I am the captain, and let's take a look back at our year. All right, before we get too far into the year in review, we do have the payouts that we got to talk about real quick. So, Josh, you paid yourself, I imagine.
I paid myself, and I also paid my dues for next year.
Okay.
So I'm in the league next year, just in case anybody is curious about that. But I paid. Jordan got his money. It's in the mail. By the time he sees this, hopefully he'll have received it. We also kept $50 out of that for his entry fee for next year. And Gus, who finished in third place, was due some money, but due to the fact that he didn't actually finish paying all of the money that he owed this year, he's got a $35 credit for next season.
All right, so you're not going to pay him, you're just going to hold on to it?
I'm holding on to it because I'm not chasing, well, I'm still going to have to chase him for $15, but I'm not chasing him for the whole amount next year.
I think that's probably the smartest move.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, let's go ahead and move forward into our year in review. Let's go ahead and start by taking a look back at our best moves and worst moves of the season.
Okay.
The first thing I'd like to look at are best moves.
Sure.
There were quite a few transactions this year. We actually looked back last week at all the different transactions.
Yep.
Between Tom and I, we had, 2,000. Jordan Keitel, Ryan Barber, not so many.
No.
But there were a lot of moves that were made. What did you see as the best move this season?
Well, I'm going to toot my own horn in saying that when I stole Le'Veon Bell from Ryan, that was probably the best move. But a couple other ones that I also liked were me getting Devontae Adams. I think that
did help you out.
Yeah, he finishes the number 7 wide receiver overall for the season. Played a big role, had some big weeks. Had a couple of stinkers, but had some big weeks, and I really liked it. And then I thought you picking up Jordan Howard for free. I don't think you paid any money for him, or if you did, it wasn't very much. That guy's going to be likely a first-round pick in redraft leagues, if not maybe second-round pick, but he's going to be a really high selection next year, the way things look right now, and you've got him as a cheap keeper going forward, so I think that was another smart move.
In the 8th round. I'm happy to have him.
Yeah, very good.
He's one of my few that I'm like, yeah, solid keeper.
Yep.
And I didn't pay anything for him. So yeah, it's a good, and he is going to be, I think, a first round. I don't think it's going to be a second round. I think he'll be a first round pick.
Yeah, it's hard to say with draft, free agency, and everything else, but yeah, I mean, just talent
I think
situation.
right now we know where everybody's going to be next year. Don't give me that.
You're right.
All right. No, you're right. I think it's going to be a first round, and I'm happy to have him, definitely.
Good.
I want to piggyback, for the best move of the season was definitely you picking up Le'Veon Bell. I know you paid the second round pick, so you paid a high price for him, but I mean, you got a belt and a trophy here for it.
Yep.
I do think it was the best move. That was actually a time in the season when you had just lost C.J. Anderson.
Yeah.
He went on an IR right before you made that trade. So you were scoring about 130, 140 points a week, sometimes more, sometimes a little bit less. But as soon as you picked up Le'Veon Bell, you never scored less than 150 points. Well, one week you scored less than 150 points, but you still won that week. So moving from that point that you got Le'Veon Bell forward, only 1 week without scoring 150 points, you were just dominating from there. And that was week 8 or 9.
Yeah,
So
he
it
helped out
was
a
for a
lot.
long time. So I would definitely say that was the best move of the season.
I agree.
Worst move. This was fun because there was a lot of bad moves. I went back and looked back at all the transactions, and holy moly. I mean, it was hard to narrow the list down, but there was a couple that stood out definitely above the others. What did you see as the worst move?
Well, I think Gus actually paying to pick up Brandon Marshall was maybe the worst move of the season, because Brandon Marshall finished as the number 52 wide receiver overall, and I think he bought him from you, right?
Yeah, well, here's the thing. So Gus and I negotiated on this for a few weeks, and he wanted him, and I said, I won't go lower than this, I won't go lower than that, and he finally was like, I'll just pull the trigger, I'll just do it. And I held firm, and I got my price that I wanted because I knew Gus was going to overpay for him, and I knew it was going to work out in my favor. So,
I think it did.
So that might be one of the best moves, actually, is me getting that.
Best for you, worst for him.
Yeah, we'll go with that. So there were a few others. I think Lisa trading for Ajayi, that was a really bad move.
I know you hate Ajayi. I still think he has good talent. I think he could be a keeper, and he had a couple of good weeks.
Maybe a keeper, but he had one good week for Lisa. One. And it was when it was all over.
In the Nobody Cares Bowl.
In the Nobody Cares Bowl. He had one good week for her. It just, I don't think it was a good move. She was paying for the 200-yard games that he had prior to.
She gave up, what, a 7th-round pick?
Yeah, 7th-round pick.
Give anything for him.
I gave enough.
That's cheap.
There were a lot of other bad moves. I just want to quickly go through a couple more. 2 more from Gus. Gus paying up for Jameis Winston early in the season. That was always fun. We talked about that for a long time.
A lot of fab. Yeah.
Gus paying for Jalen Marshall. I never understood that one. It just didn't make sense to me, and he dropped him very shortly
He
after.
thought he was Brandon Marshall first.
I think he did. I really think he did. Jordan picked up Marshawn Lynch there in the middle of the season.
There was about 30 seconds worth of conversation where he might come back.
Yeah, and then I understand. In this league, we have to be ahead of the game. You gotta be ahead.
Gotta be on it.
I understand that, but it was not a good move.
No, ultimately, no, it wasn't.
Who else? I dropped Bilal Powell.
Yep. Thank you.
But hold on, I dropped him for somebody really good, right?
No.
Oh yeah, it was Kenyon Drake.
Yeah.
He's not good.
No.
But I'm not the only one who picked him up and dropped him.
Yeah.
Lisa also picked up Bilal Powell at one point and then dropped him, and then he turned out to be pretty good toward the end of the season.
I want to thank both of you for doing that. I really do appreciate it. It helped me considerably.
And then my favorite for this season was definitely Tom. The whole Matthew Stafford fiasco that you had.
Yeah.
You picked him up, and then the same week you dropped him, and then he did really well that week.
Yeah.
And then you picked him back up, and he had like a so-so week, and then you dropped him again. You know where he ended up at the end of the season?
Was he the number 7?
Number 7
Yeah.
quarterback on the season. Maybe you should just have him the whole season. I don't know. What do I know? I don't have a championship belt next year. All right, let's go ahead and move forward to our MVP.
Sure.
You know what? No, I'm going to change it up a little bit on
Okay.
you. I want to do LVP first.
Okay.
Let's look at the least valuable player of the season.
This one's fun.
Now, we have to think about this. Least valuable, yeah, Adrian Peterson, he was no good, but he wasn't good right away, so you can't make him as the least valuable.
You got to take the major injuries out of it, because
Right.
major injuries happen. You know, Adrian Peterson got basically knocked out in the second game of the year. Keenan Allen got knocked out after the first week.
Right.
You know, and C.J. Anderson and Eddie Lacy and Doug Martin all had pretty big injury concerns. Sammy Watkins had pretty big injury concerns all year long, where they missed significant amounts of the season. I think on our LVP, we're looking at guys who consistently were there. They just didn't
were not good.
do very much.
And they kept starting on teams, or they were there every week. Somebody was starting him, and he just never performed up to what you're looking for.
Yep.
All right, so I'll go ahead and start this one.
Sure.
My LVP on the season is Todd Gurley.
Yeah, he was bad.
Todd Gurley was not good. He finished as the number 20 running back, which you're like, okay, number 20, that's not bad. But he had like 2 weeks where he was decent. Good. 2 weeks.
He was number 20 because he played every game.
Right.
And he got some yardage every single game.
Yeah, but he was on 3 different teams this season.
Yeah.
He got traded from. He started off on Keidel's team.
Yep.
Got traded over to Tom's team.
So Kyle got value out of him.
Keidel did get some value out of him, and then Tom had him, and then Tom traded him over to Gus.
So
and
Tom
so
got
Tom
some
got actually really good value out of that one. And then Gus had him and started him, and Gus did finish third place, but I think if he had somebody other than Gurley, he might have had a better shot at getting higher. Gurley only had 5 weeks with double digits. 5 weeks with double digits. I mean, I'm talking 10 points. So it's 5 weeks only, and that's a second round keeper right there. He was drafted technically in the second round, but he went in the first round in a lot of drafts, and not ours because we have keepers. But yeah, LVP Todd Gurley.
It's pretty bad. However, I think there's a couple people who are slightly worse.
Okay.
So coming in as my runner-up, least valuable player of the year, is Michael Floyd. Michael Floyd finished as the number 64 overall wide receiver.
Yeah, but he was drafted like 64th, right?
He was a third-round draft pick.
Dang. Wait, who drafted him? Some loser?
Schmuck. Yeah. Good job.
Me?
Yeah.
All right.
He was dropped 3 different times, and at the end of the season, he wasn't even on a roster. We may have seen the video of him passed out in his car before he got cut by Arizona and picked back up by New England.
Looked like Josh at Ryan's bachelor party.
Yeah, that was a long time ago. We're probably about the same age at that point. But yeah, he had a lot of high expectations coming into the season, which was just terrible. But he was not my least valuable player.
Oh, he wasn't?
No.
Okay.
He was the runner-up. The least valuable player, in my opinion, in this football season is Randall Cobb. Randall Cobb finished as the number 58 wide receiver, so he's slightly better than Michael Floyd, but
58, okay.
58. He was a second-round pick.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what's interesting about him is he was not dropped, not traded at all during the season. In fact, the number 58 wide receiver was started 12 separate times.
Yeah, it's hard to not put somebody who's got Aaron Rodgers as a quarterback in your lineup. I understand that.
So, for comparison, he was number 58. Devontae Adams was number 7. That's the difference between what we thought Cobb could do and the new Cobb, whose name is Devontae Adams.
It kind of flipped a little bit this year. Definitely.
So, in my opinion, Randall Cobb, least valuable player in the league.
All right, let's move to more positive here.
All right.
MVP.
Yep.
The most valuable player on a fantasy roster this season. I'll let you go ahead and start this one.
Well, the 2 guys that I picked out are...
Wait, hold on.
Yes.
DeMarco Murray?
He was good.
But not MVP?
Not MVP.
Oh, because he kind of tailed off at the end.
Yep.
How about David Johnson?
He was really awesome for the worst team in the league. So,
man.
Can't be the most valuable player when your team is awful.
All right, so he didn't score 130 points a week, so it didn't work out for him. Okay,
All
right.
Really good.
Sorry, who is your MVP?
So the 2 guys that I had down as some of the most valuable players, the second place is probably going to be Jordy Nelson. This guy finished as the number 2 wide receiver in the league.
After having such a terrible start.
Well, he started off slowly.
Yeah.
He was still recovering from his injuries that knocked him out last season, but he wound up being a late round keeper, I think 8th or 9th rounder, whenever he was.
He was the 8th round keeper.
And wound up being the number 2 wide receiver, and coming through when it mattered, coming through in the playoffs, coming through at the end of the season, coming through when you really needed him to. So Jordy Nelson was my number 2 for most valuable, and then number 1 is kind of goofy. You may not expect it, but it's Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers was the number 1 quarterback, was consistent week in and week out.
He was number 1 by a large margin, too.
Wide margin. Blew away the other guys that you thought were kind of going to be in that number 1 range. He crushed week in and week out. And so when you combine those 2, Aaron Rodgers and Jordy Nelson, I mean, they just make for a dynamic combination. They're amazing 2 players. And he was another late round keeper. Maybe not quite as late as Nelson, but he was not first 2-3 rounds. So, yeah, really awesome. I thought Aaron Rodgers deserved the MVP for the race.
So when I asked you to look for an MVP, an LVP, did you just look at the Packers roster and was like, oh, pick these guys?
Well, I look at value, and then I look at what they accomplished, and then I look at what they did against the rest of the competition, and so for this specific league, that's why I picked those 2 guys.
All right, MVP, in my opinion, is going to be Ezekiel Elliott. Number
That's
one
awesome.
overall pick. He lived up to it. I think that's important.
And
When
then
you-
some.
Yeah, when you're picking in the first couple rounds, you're just hoping for somebody to end up being top 10, really,
Yeah,
at their
just be
position.
consistent.
You just be consistent and don't ruin my season. And I think Zeke kind of made your season.
He was awesome.
Never under double-digit fantasy
No.
points. Scoring 20 points regularly,
Consistently.
at least 15 every week.
And fun to watch.
And fun to watch in his tiny shirts. So definitely I would take Zeke as the MVP.
Sure.
And of course, he kind of led you to your championships.
Yeah,
I think that's important as well.
He was very important up until week 17.